Welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast.
Welcome to Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney. I'm your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we are diving into the essentials you need to know about family law in South Carolina. Rhett, great to see you again.
Kevin, how have you been?
I've been good. How about you?
Can't complain. It's all good.
That's good. I love to hear that. Well, talk about why you decided to focus part of your practice on estate planning matters out there in South Carolina.
Yeah, so, do a lot of family law and, kind of run hand in hand. When people get divorced, they need to redo their wills, redo their estate planning. And, one of the secrets that people don't know is we're all going to die. So,
wait a minute, what?
Planning is just a necessity.
What exactly is estate planning? At the root of it, what is it and why do we need it?
Estate planning is focused on what happens. I'm going to simplify this for you, Kevin.
Please.
What happens to our stuff when we die, right? We accumulate all of these things during our life and then we pass away and it has to be divided. And what estate planning does, part of estate planning, what it does is tells those left behind how you want your things divided. Another part of estate planning or what falls under that umbrella are some of the advanced directives that we draft to be in order before you die, such as a healthcare power of attorney or a living will or a power of attorney. Even though you have a will which goes into effect when you die, you do need documents in place can help you before you die because, for whatever reason, we see people getting dementia, they can't handle their own legal affairs, and we've got to be able to put people in a position to help us as we age.
I think it's something like a common misconception, or I'm guessing it's a misconception. You're gonna tell me, but a lot of people, I feel like you'd be like, well, I don't really have anything, or I don't have much,
right?
So I don't really need to do that kind of estate planning. Is it something that's more for wealthy people, or is it for everyone?
For the most part, it's for everyone. Of course, if you just own a bicycle and a couch, you can probably get by with that. But for the most part, people have the same type of assets. They have a house, they have a retirement account, they have a bank account, they have a car, and they have children. So we need to make sure that, even if you don't have a lawyer draft any documents for you, you need to sit down with them because you may have a problem there that you don't even know about. And even though you may not have anything that you consider to be important, you should see some of the fights that we see over things that the person who died didn't think was important. So yeah, you definitely need it.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, we've all seen Succession, right? There's a lot of fighting that goes on about things like that. So do you have any crazy stories? Anything that what's the craziest thing you've seen people fight over?
Oh man, I've seen people, I don't know whether you remember this, Kevin, you're younger than I am. You remember the dancing raisins that came in the Hardee's Happy Meal type box?
California raisins, absolutely.
California raisin, yeah. People collected those.
They had their own TV show.
Yeah, they thought those things were going to be worth something someday, and people fight over that kind of stuff. It's funny. I have seen more fist fights in probate court where you have to go to administer an estate than I have in criminal court where the criminals are there. I've never seen a fist fight in a criminal court. But I've seen lots of fist fights in probate court where people are fighting over, their loved ones' stuff that have been left behind. And it's usually it's not a lot of stuff they're fighting, but they do it anyway.
It's gonna be tough to beat for stories. California raisins fighting. Yeah, that's gonna be tough to beat. Is there a too early when it comes to estate planning? I mean, should you wait to a certain point in life or certain life moments or changes or what have you?
If you're just a single guy, no children, no house, you probably get away with it. I think where you really need to start focusing on things is when you get married, and then especially when you have children. If you don't get the estate planning done right when you get married, when you have children, you definitely need to. Because here's what people don't know. If you die without a will and you own a house in South Carolina, half of that house will be owned by your wife or husband, whomever you leave behind, and the other half will be owned by your children. So in effect, you could have a spouse who owns a house with a minor and you can't do anything with them. So, it's once you have a child, I think that changes everything.
Wow, that's interesting. So what do people do in that scenario? If I have a wife and a 3-year-old, and don't yell at me, but we haven't done estate planning. What happens if I were to go and so my son owns half the house?
Yeah, your son owns half the house. And I love that because guess what? It then you have to hire me to take care of it and clean it up because, we've got to bring a lawsuit in the probate court to get permission to, for instance, if your wife wanted to sell your house, she's going to have to get permission from the probate court to sell the house. And then when the house is sold, half of those proceeds go into an account for your 3-year-old. And so your wife, who may have been paying on the mortgage for who knows how long, all of a sudden has to give half of that to a 3-year-old to hold into account that she can't use to go buy another house. So it's a terrible problem. They don't think about it. They don't know about it. So that's one reason, and it happens all the time. One reason why you need a will or some type of estate planning.
Yeah, my son would just spend it all on Hot Wheels anyway. So yeah, it's interesting though. I feel like every time we talk, it's not that I'm definitely the kind of person that I like to hire professionals. It's just how I am. I don't do my own taxes and all that. So I just like to hire professionals. But when we talk, I can't help but to think like it's another reason you got to hire a professional. You got to hire a professional because I would say that most average people don't know that about what you just talked about the house and half of it going to the kids.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't know, right? And we all think we know it all. And so, yeah, that's why you hire a professional for everything. You're a doctor, you can't diagnose yourself. You can try, but we forget those professionals, they went to school for a particular reason. They see this stuff every day. If your sink clogs up, or do you really want to spend the time to go try to figure out what you don't know? And you call the plumber. He's done it a million times. He's going to know exactly what the problem is. Go right at it, go fix it. And you'll probably have another problem. Never have another problem with that. So yeah, hire a professional because otherwise it's going to cost you more in the end. We just forget.
I know we've talked about the fact that there's, people out there that try to do family law stuff on their own or anything. Do you find that there's people who will try to do their own estate planning and stuff like with internet tools and whatnot?
Oh yeah. And I tell them this, if you need a will, you need a power of attorney, you need a healthcare power of attorney, go do it yourself. And you know why, Kevin? I've told you this all along. Because I make more money fixing the problem that you have created. And it costs 10 times more to fix a problem than it does to deal with it right off. But people get online and they try to create these wills and they don't understand the terms. And I saw one yesterday that I've been working on. And it's funny, the surviving son went back and recreated what he thinks his father was trying to do through an online form. And he saw where his father went wrong. And he said, Rhett, I see why my father made that mistake. The problem is it's going to cost the son a lots of money that his father really wanted him to have. But because of the mistakes that his father made, thinking he did it right and not knowing, it's going to cost this guy tens of thousands of dollars. So yeah, people think they can do it themselves all the time. It's a bad thing to do.
You mentioned a few things, like we talked about the house and stuff like that. What else can go wrong for someone who fails to do proper estate planning?
You can lose your retirement account. It can go someplace that you don't want it to. We can do things so we can protect your assets from potential creditors. We can take steps to bypass the estate process. We can do things to make the estate process happen or move along more quickly. There are all kinds of tools and all kinds of resources that we as lawyers use to make sure that what a client wants to have done happens in really a less expensive way and a faster way. People always get scared by the estate process, and there are ways we can avoid that. We can do a trust. You can avoid the estate process altogether, the probate process where you have to go to court. We can do trust. We can do all kinds of things that there's no way a regular person, a layman, can do that on their own because they're just not going to have the knowledge. They're just not going to have the professionalism. They're not going to have any of the education that's going to allow them to do what needs to be done because they don't do it every day. Right? And if you don't do it every day, you're not going to be good at it. Kevin, I don't know. Do you play golf?
Not very well.
Yeah.
Yes, I try.
Yeah. Right. And how do you get better? You have to do it every single day to get better. And it's like that, whether you're a surgeon, a pilot, or a lawyer, or a golfer. You just have to do it to get better at it.
Yeah. And I feel like another aspect is that every state's different. So, trying to, do your Googling and stuff, or God forbid, Chat GPT or something like that to get your legal advice. I mean, you could get information that doesn't apply to where you live.
Yeah, all the time. And in South Carolina, where I live, we have a lot of people moving from other states. And they don't think about, hey, we need to update our will, our power of attorney. It may not be applicable here. Some of the terms may not be what we need them to be in order to do what they're really wanting to do. So, yeah, when people try to do it themselves, they end up screwing it up. And it's wonderful for me, Kevin. I have people that I'm sending through college. So make all the mistakes you want.
What is the best way for someone to be prepared? What are the most common estate planning documents that people should consider having in place before they come see someone like you?
Yeah. So this is what I tell people. Everybody's in a different stage of life. And depending upon that stage of life, I put in order the documents that they need. If they had to choose only one document, which one should they choose? Of course, I think they need to do all of them. We look at their deed to their house. If they own it with their spouse, is it a joint right of survivorship deed? If not, we need to change that. If they have children and a spouse, we need to make sure they have a will. They need a power of attorney. As people get older, they definitely need a power of attorney. As people get older, I would tell them if they had to choose between a will and a power of attorney, choose the power of attorney, because we're living longer and our minds are going faster. And inevitably, you just leave that problem with someone else. If you don't have those documents, it costs so much more money.
Anything else that you recommend to people to be prepared before they start the process?
Yeah, absolutely. Think about who you want to administer your estate. Who do you trust? Don't just appoint someone to be over your estate unless you trust them. Look at all of your assets. Maybe that you can name beneficiaries on some of your assets so that asset moves out of probate. So yeah, look at everything and just come in and talk to a lawyer. Consultation usually doesn't cost that much. It saves you money. Lots of lawyers will apply that consultation fee to the documents that are being prepared. So come in and learn what you don't know. Ask questions, because I tell you, every time somebody comes in, they always learn something new.
So we touched on this a little bit, but does everybody need both a will and a trust?
Yes and no, right? The famous legal answer. So if you have a trust, you still need a will, because you know what I find? People will do the trust documents and then they don't fund the trust. So when you make a trust, you have to actually put property into the trust. And if they forget to do so, then you're going to need that will to clean up the mess that you kind of left without funding the trust properly. But if you have a will, you probably and most likely don't need a trust. And a trust isn't for everybody, right? Not everybody needs a trust. People get really, really scared of the probate process and don't want to have to go through the government through the probate process. So they want to do a trust. And trusts are more expensive than wills. And I sit people down and I tell them, hey, I hope everybody will do a trust. I make more money on the trust, but not everybody needs it. So it's really for every individual circumstance. So if you have a trust, you definitely need a will. But if you have a will, you may not need a trust.
What situations would someone need that trust?
Depends on how their family situation is probably number one. Like blended families, a husband who has children and a wife who has children and they marry, if you have, what you don't want to have is a will leaving everything to the spouse and then equal among their children, because guess what happens? One spouse is going to die first, usually, and then the living spouse can then go change their will and leave everything to their children, thereby cutting out the parent or the spouse who died's children. That wasn't the intent. So definitely blended families, I would do a trust to make sure that the other side doesn't get cut out. I tell my wife this. Told her that we need a trust. And she says, why? I said, because I don't want you cutting my children out of what they may get from me. And I don't want me to cut your child out from getting what she may get from us. She said, I would never do that. I said, you know what? The woman right now may not, but the 85-year-old woman that I'm married to may do it, because things change, minds change. So people forget that. People, for some reason, think that the way they are now is how they're going to be forever. And inevitably, as we get older, we make worse decisions sometimes. So everybody involved. The best thing you can do for your family is to have a proper estate plan.
When it comes to the people that do the online services, we've talked about the dangers, we've talked about the problems, but they're legitimate businesses online, or at least I think they are. how often do people get it right when they use those services?
Usually where they mess up is the execution of the documents, having it witnessed properly, having it notarized properly, or they just don't understand what the document says. They answer a bunch of questions, but if they don't quite understand what's being asked, they may not answer correctly, or they may put in the information incorrectly. When you go to a lawyer, we do this every day. The way we do it, paralegal drafts it, I look at it, I review it, she reviews it. So you have a lot of different eyes on it. But when you're using one of those online services, you're putting in the information and it's spitting out just the information that you put into it. If there's bad information going in, it's going to be bad information going out.
Yeah, I feel like I brought up the tax thing before. I feel like that can happen with online tax stuff too. Like you don't catch everything. You might not get, the worst case scenario is obviously you do something wrong and you get audited. But the other worst thing is you leave money on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've tried the online tax thing for my kids because they have simple taxes.
Sure.
I don't understand what they're saying. And they, looking at a W-2, that's still kind of hard. So just give it to a professional. You'll sleep better, you'll get it right, and you don't have to deal with the mess at the end.
Yep. I agree. I think that's a good advice. So someone's just, listening to this podcast and they're like, all right, I probably need to do this. I'm the host of this podcast. I'm also thinking that. What is the first step that people need to do in order to get the ball truly moving?
Yeah, pick up the phone. For me, you call 864-228-1616. Call a lawyer. It doesn't matter who it is. Just call a lawyer and just tell them, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I need a will. I think I need a power of attorney. Can I come in and talk to you? And any good lawyer will take that person in and go through what they may or may not need. So the first step is just call a lawyer.
Besides being an amazingly personable human being, how do you set yourself apart in a crowded space like family law and estate planning?
Yeah, estate planning, I've got a great team. What I did, there was one particular paralegal that I was after for years because she was the best administrative assistant in the probate court here in the county that I live. And so I finally got her, and she knows what she's doing. So I try to surround myself with great people because that's the key to everything. And we don't oversell. We don't just come in and tell somebody they need a trust where we make more money. We look at their individual circumstances because everybody's different. Everybody's at a different stage of life. Everybody has a different number of family members. And I think what sets us apart is we're honest with people. We don't need your money. We want to make sure that you are getting what you really need and not what you may necessarily want or not.
Final question. Are you a Gamecock or a Tiger?
Gamecock. I'm a Gamecock. Some years are good, most years are bad, but
you're undefeated right now, right?
That's right. That's right. I like it.
Undefeated. All right. Well, thanks for tuning into Off the Record, a legal podcast with attorney Rhett Burney. For more information or to connect with Rhett, you can visit rhettburney.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Rhett, great talking with you again.
Kevin, always good to talk to you. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.